Hey guitar engineers, new guitar day. I was interested in a semi-hollow guitar. Found this Epiphone Dot for sale used on Reverb. It was pretty inexpensive and I read really good reviews on it, so I thought, let me try it out. It said it was used, but when I got it, it looked brand new. It was still in its packaging. It looked like it had never been opened and it appears to be in good shape. However, the action was way too low on it. It was buzzing everywhere. I tried to adjust the truss rod, but it didn't seem to help. So I think this thing needs a little bit more work. So it needs an expert touch. I'm going to take it over to my buddy John Scott at Bluesman Vintage Guitars. I'm fortunate because I live literally like 7 minutes from the shop. So I'm going to pack this thing up. We're going to take it over there. We're going to see what John can do. This is how I ride, people. 2008 Honda CR-V, paid for a long time ago. Here we are, Port Royal Business Park. That's it right there, people. Bluesman Vintage Guitars. That's the back door. We need to go to the front door. Okay, here we go. Look at all these lovely basses. Alright, John, so I got this guitar off of Reverb. It looks brand spanking new, but it was sold used. I got a good deal on it. It looks beautiful, but the action was all messed up on it. I tried to make some adjustments myself, but I think it needs your expert touch. So,
Alright, well,
what do you do with this sort of thing?
Anytime I get a guitar fresh out of the box, the first thing I'm going to look at is just how it's set up. Generally, any guitar that you get, you're going to play it first, and then it's going to give you some signs of what it's going to need from playing it. It's funny, I have this theory that anybody who picks up a guitar immediately and sights down the neck has no idea what they're even looking for. They're just trying to look cool. They're trying to look like they know what they're going. But
let me see you do it again. Look down the neck.
Like that.
Yeah,
so
right.
You look down it. We will look down the neck.
Yeah, you do look cool.
Yeah, see, it looks like I know what I'm talking about. But and if you know what you're looking for, that is a very important thing to do. But most normal guitar players are just going to play it first. You get out of the box, play it. I'll check it for neck straightness because I know that it's traveled halfway around the world and probably sat in the warehouse for a little while before it got here.
You gonna check it for the coronavirus?
I will check it. China. Yeah, well, I'll check it for the coronavirus and the Budweiser virus since it's here in the States now. Terrible
He's
jokes.
here till Thursday.
Yeah, right. No, actually, I'm not. They're sending me home. So it looks like your neck is pretty straight already. You've got a couple of thousandths of relief. What I'm doing right there, and this is a trick that a lot of guys can do. You can do this at home. If you don't know what you're looking for when you're sighting down a neck like this, and you want to check your neck for straightness, hold the first fret and the last fret. Some guys will tell you like the 15th. I usually just do the last. And then I'll stretch my hand up and touch the string somewhere around the 7th or 9th fret. And what you're doing there is you're using the string itself as a straight edge. And so when you do that, when you hold it at first and last, you'll see that there's a little bit of relief there.
I can hear it tapping.
You can hear it tapping. If you don't hear that tapping or you can't see any relief, that means you generally have a back bow and you need to loosen the neck and let it move forward. If you have too much, then you've got a neck that's bowed like this, then you need to straighten the neck and take some of that out. And it's funny, I have guys that come in and they really like, I have to have a lot of relief in my neck. Okay, but then they're complaining about buzzing in this area. And guys that want their neck really straight will complain about buzzing in this area. And what's happening is the neck itself when you've got perfectly straight, which is really too straight, you want a little bit of relief, just a couple of thousandths or so, to allow the string room to orbit, because the string orbits bigger in the center of the string than it does at the ends. And so if you get the neck too straight, what happens is then when you fret these notes, you're playing uphill because the neck is curved into a back bow. So you'll be, when you press this fret, that means this one's higher up, meaning it's going to buzz, 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 till you get to about the 5th to 7th fret. Then it'll start to clear up because you're at the top of that hill, and you're going to be continuing to play up the neck, which will be going downhill then. That's one telltale sign when you're pick up a guitar and it buzzes in the first 5 positions but clears up around the middle of the neck. That's a good way to tell you have back bow. If it plays really clear up to about the 7th or 8th fret and then starts to buzz, especially on the low strings, that's a good indication that you have too much forward bow and you want to straighten the neck out, because what you've done then is you have so much relief in your neck this way that you're playing downhill into a valley. And then once you hit right in there, you're now playing uphill again and you're buzzing all the way out. So that's why a truss rod is there, is to kind of balance out the string tension against the neck. So you can counteract that and keep the neck sitting where it wants to be. That's the first thing we're going to look for. And that's a lot of information in a short period of time, but you can, when you've done this a few times, you can look at it really quickly and make that judgment call if you use those kind of simple rules of thumb, I guess. So the next thing I'm going to look at is nut heights and saddle heights. If we know that the neck is pretty straight or has just the right amount of relief. And there's a couple of, I'm going to show you the way that I check nut heights, and then the quick way that you can check them at home. I check them with actual dial indicators with this courtesy of Stuart McDonald.
Can we see a close up on that?
Yeah. What this does is has a little plunger in the bottom, and this base sits over the strings, and it will tell me the height of each string in relation to the first fret. And depending on what type of guitar it is, you can adjust up or down. Typically you're adjusting down nut slots. And most of the time, fortunately, from factories, they're set up a little high, so we can bring those down with a string height gauge and nut files. So what I would do, you may want to step around here to see this, is you would set this across one of the strings. So what you would do is you would set this little device over top of the string and the fret at the same time at the intersection of those two. Set it to 0, and then push down on the string on either side to see how much fret height you have. And you've got, in this one, you've got 23 thousandths or so. I like to run around 20 thousandths on hollow bodies and acoustic guitars because they seem to have a little bit more resonance and orbit. Solid body guitars, I'll go down to about 15 thousandths or so, and I have gone on some guitars, especially heavier ones, I'll get down to as low as 5 thousandths or so, depending on how you want the action to play. But on this guy, I would go with 20 thousandths. So what we would want to do is check each one of these individually. This one's a little high. This one's set at about almost 30 thousandths here. So yeah, 28. So that one would come down a little bit. The next one's going to come down a little bit, and we'll go through each one of those using the appropriate nut file for the string gauge to bring each one of them to the correct height. That's how we do it in a professional repair shop. How you can check this at home, if you're curious whether or not your nut heights are taller or too high or not, is hold the string at the 3rd fret, just like this. Now you want to really do this in playing position, so I'll turn around, hold it at the 3rd fret, and then just like we checked the string as a straight edge here on the 7th fret for the truss rod, you're going to do the same thing at the 1st fret, hold it at 3rd, and then checking at the 1st fret. And you want just enough to maybe get like a business card through there. Anything more than that is going to be too much. And that can cause the guitar to play stiff in the first positions. It can actually cause like the F chords to be sharp. You know, all of these early notes to be sharp because you're having to pull down to the fret from a higher nut slot. So, but if you get that and it looks like it's a little high, it's more than a business card, then if you don't feel comfortable slotting the nut yourself, which I don't recommend doing unless you have experience, take it to your guitar tech and have him adjust those for you. Now, the same thing can be done at the 12th fret, and this one you can do yourself. You hold the 12th fret and look at the height on the 13th, and you want about a business card's thickness of gap there. That one, if it's high or low, you can adjust it by raising or lowering your saddle. If you have adjustable saddles on acoustic guitars, take it to your technician, have him set that up for you. That's the 3 quick and easy ways to check a guitar right out of the box or right off the bat without having to get into specialized tools. So this one, all of that stuff, except for the nut heights being a little high, saddle height is a little high. That could come down a little bit as well. And you can check that on both sides too, or all along. With brand new guitars, the radius of a tune-o-matic style bridge like this should not be a problem, but sometimes it is, depending on what the guitar is. So sometimes you actually have to take the nut files that you used up here and adjust these to be the correct radius, and you would use a radius gauge for that. And these are available from several different suppliers, Stuart McDonald. There's plenty of them on Amazon and eBay and things like that too. This go under the string, and so you want to make sure that this is. I think I grabbed the wrong one. I needed the 12. I grabbed the 9.5. Look at me. Should have a 12 here. Yeah. So if you don't know what your radius is, you get a set of these and you check the bottom of it against your fingerboard, and then the top sides of these go under the string. So you would first go here, and you can look to see if there's light coming out either in the center or on the edges, and that will tell you whether the radius you've chosen matches the radius of your fingerboard. We know that this is a Gibson product, and they all have 12s for the most part. So we're going to check this and see if our saddle heights are correct. Okay, so we're actually finding that the 2 outside E's are a little bit high because they're not choking out. So what you're doing is you're pulling this up just lightly to the strings, just barely touching, and you'll notice the ones that are touching are matching that radius. That one's a little bit high, and that one's a little bit high. So we may actually take the saddle files or the nut files and bring those down to match the radius as well. But again, that's also a personal preference thing. Some guys actually like the outside strings to be a little bit higher for easier bendability. I'm seeing just some minor things in this one that I would set up for if it were coming into my shop to be set up. I'm definitely going to do the nut slots. I'm definitely going to bring the saddle down. And then also the other thing you want to do too is a chromatic play test, just every note. And make sure that you don't have any high frets or choke outs.
Is that the only scale you know?
That's it. That's it. That's all of my
lists. If you learn the chromatic scale, then you know every other scale.
You know every other scale. They're all in there. You're only a half step away.
Don't listen to me, people.
Then there's a couple of places that I test for bends. 15, 17, and 12 seem to be the 3 locations that are the first to choke when a string is too low. Now you may be able to bend everywhere on the neck, but 15 will choke out, or 17 will choke out, and then 12. And it's usually in that order. 15 is the first to go, then followed by 17, and then 12. So a lot of times you'll get, as you're raising the string up or lowering it down, you'll get 12 and 17 will be fine, but then 15 will start to choke. So usually if you've got 15 good, and your frets are all seated and level, then you're okay. But I check those 3. So far, everything on this thing is nothing's choking out, but we do have a little bit of high action. So what I'm going to do with this thing is again, nut slots, saddle height. Truss rod's already good because we checked that, and then we'll see where it ends up.
So my truss rod adjustment was good because I did toy with it.
You did.
And I thought that seemed like where the neck should be, but I knew that it still needed more adjustments. And I would typically make a truss rod adjustment if I can, correct a guitar with an eighth or quarter turn or something.
Yeah.
Then I'm good to go. But if it needs something beyond that,
that's
what you're here for.
Anything more than a half turn on a truss rod, go see a technician who knows how that truss rod works completely. Because if you're having to move more than a half of a turn, either the guitar's been neglected for a while, or there's something else going on, twists or bows, and you want to have somebody qualified to look at it.
Yeah, and you know what? I think it did need like a half turn or more. I was surprised how much I had to, because it was out of the box, the strings were right down on the frets.
Okay. Now, loosening a half turn or more is okay, because you're not putting tension on the rod. But you still want to talk to somebody. You did the right thing, getting somebody. That's typical for one that's been sitting in a warehouse. It's kind of, our weather right now is cold one day, hot one day, cold one day, hot one day. So necks are going to move around like crazy right now during this season. Depending on where you're at geographically, if you're in a really dry climate, dry necks, like out in Arizona and things, they tend to want to back bow and stay there. In really wet climates, really humid climates, they want to go forward, so you're having to tighten up more. You never want to tighten more than about a half turn at a time without seeking some help if you're not comfortable with it, because that's how truss rods get broken. 99.9% of all truss rod breaks happen when trying to tighten. And there's some tricks that we know that sometimes are scary for the end user to see, to free up a truss rod that's stuck. Sometimes we call it massaging the neck, where we'll take the neck and do it, against our chest or something, and pull on it here. Sometimes I'll do it against my neck rest, and you actually cause back bow up and down the neck. But knowing how much to do and where to do is very important, because if you just start bending on your neck, you're going to have a problem and you're going to regret doing it. So there's tricks like that
Don't try it at home.
Don't try it at home without adult supervision. We know this is a brand new guitar, so we're probably not going to have any issues with dirty electronics, but sometimes it does happen. You'll get one that's staticky. First things we'll do is just exercise those pots and get those demons out, and get those demons out, and get those demons out. Exercise it. Just get the dust to break loose from the carbon traces inside the pots. If that doesn't work on older instruments that have been sitting for a while, we may get some contact cleaner spray. Don't go to your garage and find WD-40 or PB Blast or any of that kind of stuff. I know there's stuff of people on the internet that say, oh, this works just fine. Don't do it. You're going to wish you hadn't. Use a dedicated contact cleaner spray that's made for faders. There are contact cleaners that you can buy at Lowe's and Home Depot that are fine, and there's ones that you don't want. It depends on which ones. You have to know what you're using and what you're spraying in there, especially on vintage guitars, because you can really mess up some valuable parts. These we trust are pretty good. Outside of that, we're going to look at what we want to modify on this guitar to make it cooler. Once we get it playing right, we might do something fun with it. So.
This is something they would do to a higher end guitar before it leaves the factory, but typically on a less expensive guitar.
Well, no. Even high-end guitars don't get this measure of detail done to them, unless it's a boutique-built guitar. Gibson, they have a Plek machine, but they have the Plek machine cuts nut slots, but they've reprogrammed the Plek to allow a lot more variance, so that more things will get through QC. So, yes, I shouldn't have said that company name, but there are certain companies that have the machinery to do really, really precise work, but because they have so much of it to do in a week's time, they can't be that precise with it. So they'll reprogram the machinery to allow for more tolerance. Now it's funny, when you drop the nut heights, generally the whole neck comes down with it. So I'm going to drop your saddle just a slight smidge and see where we're at. One of the things I like about import guitars, it's so much easier to adjust these bridges than the American ones. You want to give it a shot?
Wow, you got that loud. So still a little bit of buzz in that first position.
Okay.
Or do you set it like that intentionally because most players are going to be here in the middle of the neck?
I tend to set an instrument as low as I can get it without buzzing and choking out. A little bit of open string rattle doesn't bother me. It does bother some players. And so that's why I have guys come in when whether it's their first guitar or their first setup with us. I have them come in and spend a little time, and we'll do some minute adjustments up and down. So right now, because we're running the neck really straight and we've got the nut slots about where they need to be, we can give it a little bit of relief, and that may clear up some of that open string buzzing.
Could that be the strings?
It could very well be these factory strings too. So we may try that first.
Factory strings are cheap, so when you buy an inexpensive guitar, it might not be a bad idea to replace the strings.
Yeah, it's a good thing. First thing you really should do is change the strings.
Before we change the strings, we are going to give this a little bit of relief.
A little bit of relief.
Because, say again what you said about when you adjust.
When you lower the height of the strings at either end, you change the leverage at which they're pulling on the string or pulling on the neck. So if this string has to come up the headstock to a higher point and then pull this way, it has a little bit more leverage to pull the neck forward. So when we lowered the action, the neck actually straightened up a little bit. So we're going to give it just a touch of relief.
And that means you're going to loosen the truss rod.
I'm going to loosen the truss rod or turn it
to add some
counterclockwise.
Back bow.
To relieve the back bow. Right now we have a back bow.
Add some front bow.
Some forward bow or relief.
The playing side of the neck is the front.
Yes.
Sorry.
There we go. First time. So that's. Relieved a lot of that.
Play F. Play the F on the third string. On the fourth string, please. That's better. It's still a little buzzy, but I bet some strings will correct that.
Let's put a new set of strings on there and see where it gets us.
What kind of strings you putting in there?
These are DR Veritas 10s. The Veritas strings we like a lot. They're coated on the internal core wire, which is where most string failures happen. So they coat them similar to some of the other strings, but since it's coated on the inside, it doesn't feel like you blew your nose in your hands and then play guitar. So it doesn't have the slimy feeling, and so they just feel like typical strings, but they last about 5-6 times longer than a typical set of nickel gauge strings.
What kind of tuners are those?
Kind of tuners? They're Grover tuners.
Yeah.
They're,
They look better than what I typically see on some of the
yeah.
Chinese guitars.
The difference in these and like the Grovers you would buy is these are made of zinc, chrome covered zinc, whereas the expensive Grovers that look just like the Rotomatics would be brass. So there's a little bit of weight difference there and a little total difference in a brass tuner over a zinc tuner. Stability wise, they're absolutely fine. But if you just decided you wanted to get more out of the guitar, more time out of the guitar, there's a handful of modifications we do to a lot of these Epiphones and other import guitars that can really make them into professional quality instruments.
So the tuning pegs that the strings wrap around are going to have an effect on tone.
Yep.
What other, if you were going to make some upgrades just to try to maximize tone on an inexpensive instrument, what else would you change?
Typically, the first thing we would start with would be pickups, followed by the wiring harness, better quality pots and switches and wire. Then things like a bone nut over a plastic nut, followed by hardware upgrades. So on this guitar in particular, I would start with the bridge, tailpiece, both of those, and the studs in the guitar.
So why? What would be different?
Well, just like the tuners, these are chrome over zinc, which zinc is a little bit softer, more porous metal. It doesn't transfer vibration as well as brass or steel. And depending on what type of tonality you're looking for, we would maybe upgrade those to. Typically, my favorite is I use steel body anchors on both locations. Cold rolled steel instead of the zinc, because the zinc is, like I said, it absorbs a little bit of vibration rather than transferring it. The steel, it's going to move. I'll use steel posts on both locations, and then I'll use aluminum bridge frame with brass saddles and an aluminum tailpiece, so that it's lighter weight, more resonant. That resonance gets transferred through those steel parts into the body, and the whole guitar becomes a little bit more alive. Sustains longer, it resonates better, has a little bit more pleasing mid-range. And you would be surprised at how significant of a difference it can make.
What would the cost be to make those sort of hardware upgrades?
$48,000.
Can I just make a check out to you today?
Yeah, just take PayPal, food stamps, whatever.
Right now, yeah.
Yeah.
Canned goods.
Toilet paper. Yeah. No, depending on how far you go with it, you can get anywhere from, a couple $100 to, I think if you really pimped one out completely, you'd probably have about $700 to $750 more dollars in it. But you've got a guitar that then competes.
You're pimping it out. You're talking about replacing the electronics, the hardware, pickups,
electronics, hardware, both tailpiece and bridge upgrades, and tuner upgrades, and a bone nut, and probably go in with, if you're going to go that far, do the fret jig to where it plays flawlessly. Yeah, this guy. That eliminates any inconsistencies in the fretboard. Just like the Plek machine does, we just do it manually rather than a digital machine. And it allows me to kind of pick and choose where I want to cut and take. So you're looking probably all include, if you go full fret jigging on, you'd be around $1,000. Some people don't want to put that much into an import guitar, but then you do end up with a guitar that is tonally, equal to or superior than anything you get from most of the custom shops now, because we pay attention to all the little details that even the custom shops just don't have the time to do.
All right, while you're tuning up here, so we talked about different sorts of upgrades, but if someone were going to take an inexpensive guitar and just make one change, the first thing would probably be the pickups, right?
Yeah, generally. But with Epiphones, a lot of their Les Pauls and these, We have actually modified the existing pickups in a few cases. I've done it on Strat style guitars too, where we take out the factory pickups, remove the cheap ceramic magnets that are in them, and replace them with a nicer magnet. And you can really, really improve the sound of your factory pickups by doing that. Don't try to do it at home. It's something that you got to have someone who's familiar with the way a pickup goes together. But you can really drastically improve the sound of those pickups by changing the magnets out in them. We've done it on Epiphone Les Pauls and Squire Strats. And on the Squire Strat, like on a Les Paul, you've got to remove the cover, gently disassemble the pickup, and a lot of times the Epiphones are really, really, really encased in wax inside. So you got to kind of melt all of that out, push the old magnet out, put a new magnet in, put it all back together and re-wax pot it. On Strat style ones, it only works on the cheap Strat style ones. So if it's got the plastic bobbin pickups with the bar magnet on the bottom, you can knock that magnet off, press the steel rods out, and replace them with Alnico rods, 2s, 3s, 5s, whatever you want, and make a really big difference in the tonality of a cheap Strat pickup as well. We have a whole list of mods that we do for existing guitars that you can get carried away with and end up with a $2,000 Squire Strat, but you could also put a couple of $100 into something that you've already got and really get the maximum benefit out of the guitar, rather than having to go spend $2,000 and $3,000 on a new guitar, on a high-end guitar. All right, so now we've switched out to a nicer set of strings. These are DRs. And the tension on these strings is actually less than the previous strings. Even though they're both 10 to 42 gauge sets, brand to brand, the pull on the guitar can change. So if you're using Ernie Ball strings and you switch to Diodarios, or from Diodarios to DRs or Labella or any of this, even though you're putting 10s on or 11s on or whatever you're using and staying in the same gauge, you can get pretty significant changes in tension. So sometimes you have to adjust. So if you switch strings on your guitar and you find that it doesn't play the same, that's probably what you're looking at, and it's just a simple truss rod adjustment to fix it. So we're running pretty exceptionally low action now. This is one of the things that's going to separate an okay guitar from a great guitar. It's little details. So now what we've found, everything is spec'd out pretty perfectly, but we still got a little bit of a treble spot on that 3rd fret. So let me grab my fret rocker tool and check and see if maybe the 4th fret isn't just a little bit high. All right, so we're still having a little bit of kind of isolated buzzing on the D string around the 3rd to the 5th fret. So we've done everything set up to specs and everything plays great, except for right in there we're just getting a little bit of buzzing prematurely. So there's two things you can do here as a layman at the house. You can just raise the bridge up a little bit or give yourself a little bit more relief, and you can alleviate that. But because we want this thing to play as slick and perfect as you can be, what we're going to do is probably going to go through and find that high fret and see if we can't isolate it and figure out which one it is. And we know we're getting buzzing in this third fret position. So that's going to lead me to think that the 4th fret is a little high. 4th has got a little bit too. Actually, let's see where we're going here. Every fret has a little bit. So we might need to come up just a hair, but let's also look and see if we have some high frets. So, bridging from 2, 3, 4, that's fine. Yep, between the 3rd fret and the 5th fret, you can actually get what's called a little bit of rock. Hear that? On the other side of the string. So you have a little bit of height at the 4th fret. 5th fret has a little bit as well. Switch over to this. Go to the 6th fret. 6th fret seems okay. 7's actually got a little bit. Eight seems okay. Generally, when you find 7's high, the next one's going to be low because that 7th fret's going to keep the rocker higher than the next fret. So we're finding that we've got quite a few spots on here with just, there's 11, 12.
Is this a better job for your neck jig thing?
This is a job for the neck jig. So to get it at really, really, really slick, super low action, that's what it's going to need. Now, will this thing set up and play for 90% of the players out there? Absolutely. We would raise up maybe just 20 thousandths or so at the bridge. It's going to be a nice medium action. It's going to be buzz free, and the majority of players out there are going to have no issues with it. But because we're anal retentive perfectionists, we're going to want to make this thing as slick and low and perfect as possible. And in doing that, not only will we fix the leveling, we're going to polish these frets. This is another issue that comes from import guitars. Bring the camera in closer and see if you can hear this. Hopefully you can. Hear that scratchiness? That's because the tops of these frets aren't polished out as highly polished as they could be. So in doing this fret jig process, we're going to level all those little high spots, the little inconsistencies, recrown everything, and we're going to polish these things to a mirror type gloss so that when you bend, you don't get that kind of feel underneath your fingers, and sometimes you can even hear it in the pickups. Let's see if we can have this one. Hear that? So we're going to take care of all of that in this process, so that the guitar will play slicker and sound better. But as far as a setup, we can raise this up a half a turn. It's going to make that buzz go away, and you're going to be a happy camper playing the guitar. But we want to go a little bit further.
Okay, so the basic setup is finished, and this guitar is playing and feeling a lot better. But we're not done yet. In the next video, John Scott puts this guitar in his neck jig, which enables him to do the most accurate fret and fingerboard work possible. When he's done, this guitar will play as smooth as possible. To see how the process works, watch the next video. Be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel so you don't miss it. And while you're here, what do you specifically need to do in order to play guitar better? Go to my website, guitarmusictheory.com, answer the questions I ask you about your playing, and I'll send you free custom video instruction calibrated to your current level. Discover how to progressively play and sound better today in as little as 33 minutes. Go to guitarmusictheory.com. You can click on the link in the video description. Well, thanks for watching. I'm Desi Cerna. If you enjoyed this video, please click like and leave me some comments below. Then keep playing and stay tuned for more.